So today we're going to go over what we call factoring by grouping. So before, like we looked at, we said factor this, we just had this in here. The number in front of here was a 1. Now we're going to look and see where we have a different value, any other number but 1. We're going to go through factoring. Now, I wrote it down, the steps to go through. The biggest thing to remember is you're going to draw the x and you're going to multiply the first number and last number and put that up top. Your middle number still stays in the bottom. So we're going to still say what multiplies to this and add to that. You'll see the rest of it as you go through it. So let's go ahead and jump into it and go through these. So as we go through them, we want to factor. We're going to draw there our x. And we're going to multiply it. 3 times 4, which is 12, and you put that up top. 13 is our middle number. That still goes in the bottom. So we want to know what multiplies to 12 and adds to 13. So again, what multiplies to 12, you could go 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Which one of these add to 13? It'd be 1 and 12. Again, circle these. Now, here's the biggest thing. We're going to plug 1 and 12 in. 1 plus 12, they add to 13. So we are going to rewrite this equation, plugging in the two numbers that we found in for the middle term. So it's 3x squared plus 1x plus 12x plus 4. So we just add an x to those. Now, again, it doesn't matter if I were to switch 1x and 4x. That's not going to change anything. Now, so draw our x, come up with the numbers the same way, plug those two, and I'd encourage you, plug them in, draw a line, say, hey, we're putting those in. Now, we're going to factor. So what can I factor from 3 and 1? The biggest number they have in common is a 1. What can I factor from x squared and an x is an x. So we're always going to take an x out of that first set of parentheses. So 3 divided by 1 is 3. X squared divided by x just becomes an x. 1 divided by 1 is 1. X divided by x is 1, so it's 3x plus 1. What's the biggest number I can factor from 12 and 4? Okay, my sign is plus, so I'm going to put a plus there, so I can factor out of 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3x. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Last step to factoring is I combine what's on the outside. That 1x plus 4 goes into a parenthesis. So these two numbers on the outside come into a parenthesis, and then the 3x plus 1. So that's kind of the opposite of the distributive property that we've gone through with it. So we come to number 2. We want to factor by grouping. So we're going to multiply our first number, 2, times our last number of 12. So 2 times 12 is 24. So we want to know what multiplies to positive 24 and adds to negative 11. So again, if you're not sure, start with 1. 1 and 24. Now we know that they multiply to a positive and add to a negative, so they're both going to be negative. So then 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, 5 doesn't work. Okay, 7 doesn't work. So now, which one of these, 4 and 6, 3 and 8, 2 and 12, 1 and 24, add to negative 11? It'd be negative 3 and negative 8. So again, circle these. Because our because this is not 1, okay, we're going to factor by grouping. So we're going to plug these two values in for our middle one. So we rewrite the equation, 2x squared minus 3x minus 8x plus 12. Now we're going to group. This is where the grouping comes in. We're going to group the first two together and the second two. What can I factor from 2 and 3? The biggest number they have in common is a 1. From x squared and x, we can always factor out an x there. So 2 divided by 1 is 2. X squared divided by x just leaves me with an x. 3 divided by 1 is 3. X divided by x is 1. Then here, negative 8 and 12. What can I factor from 8 and 12? The biggest number they have in common would be a 4. Okay, that number is a negative, so we're going to make it a negative 4. And then 8 divided by 4 is 2x. And then 12 divided by negative 4 is negative 3. So again, we're looking at these should be the same. 2x minus 3, 2x minus 3. That's when we know we factored correctly. Combine the numbers on the outside together. So 1x minus 4 and the 2x minus 3. And we have it in factored form. So I want to just go through 2 more of these with you, just so you get a feel for what I'm doing. So we're going to be factoring by grouping is what this is called. Always start with multiplying your last number together. And if you're not sure the factors, start with 1. So we multiply, draw our x. 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. So what multiplies to negative 20 and adds to positive 8? So if you're not sure what multiplies to 20, write it down. 1 and 20, 2, 10, 3 doesn't work, 4 and 5 work, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work. 8, that's how I go through it. Okay? We know it needs to multiply to a negative, so one of them has to be negative and add to a positive. So which one of these add to positive 8 would be negative 2, positive 10. So again, circle these, and they're going to go into the middle. It doesn't matter the order in which you put it. So I go 5x squared, rewrite the equation, minus 2x plus 10x minus 4. So we rewrote the equation. Instead of 8x, we plug in 2 and 10. Now we're going to group the first 2 together and the second 2 together. So what biggest number 5 and 2 have in common would be a 1. We can always factor an x out of that first one. So 5 divided by 1 is 5. X squared divided by x is an x. 2 divided by 1 is 2. X divided by x goes there. 10 and 4, the biggest number they have in common is 2. That number is a positive, so plus 2. And then 10 divided by 2 is 5x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Last step, combine what's on the outside. Again, these are the same, so you know you did it right. So understand, every time that we do it, you're going to have an x and an x in that first set of the parentheses, and then a constant and a constant as we go through that. Last one that we'll go through, we draw our x. We multiply 3 times negative 10. So 3 times negative 10 is negative 30. What multiplies to negative 30 and adds to negative 13. So again, if you're not sure, start with 1 and 30. 2 times 15, 3 and 10, 4 doesn't work, 5 and 6, 7 doesn't work, 8 doesn't work. So you're just going through. We need to multiply to a negative 30. So we know one of them has to be negative as we work through this. Now, which one of these add to negative 13? So if I look at it, it's 2 and negative 15. So again, I'm going to plug those in for that middle term. Rewrite the equation. 3x squared plus 2x minus 15x minus 10. Group the first 2 and the second 2 together. So what can I factor from 3 and 2? The biggest number they have in common is a 1. You can always factor an x with that first parenthesis. So when we come here, 3 divided by 1 is 3. You can start thinking, hey, the pattern stays the same. It should have just an x with that one. 2 divided by 1 is 2. Now, my sign right here is a negative, so I know I'm going to factor out a negative number. 15 and 10, what's the biggest number they have in common? Is a 5. So negative 15 divided by negative 5 is 3x. Negative 10 divided by negative 5 is positive 2. So 3x plus 2, 3x plus 2. Good. Combine what's on the outside, the 1x minus 5, and the 3x plus 2. And now we've factored by grouping. So just, if you start seeing the commonalities, start seeing how the pattern shows up over and over and over again, then it makes things a lot easier as you solve.